Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi guys, how are you? Everybody all right? Coming there.
Yep.
I'm good.
I think Pascal is still coming. Let me see if there are some open pull requests. Camel. Merge. Pascal's pull request also merged. Okay, there's a conflict. 1 second.
I have the habit of joining the Google Meet link every time until I realize that it's actually a Zoom meeting. So Martin, the Amsterdam event is cancelled apparently,
Oh,
but it will be done somewhere this year. But then you hopefully will be promoted a bit earlier than before.
yeah. Let me know.
Sure.
Is this still on the Meetup platform, or is this a different?
Yeah, but I mean, there's a few things which went wrong there, and I guess Eric also learned a few things during it. So his problem was that the venue canceled him like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks out, and then he was a bit in time struggle to find someone new to host.
Yeah.
And I told him that next time when you have a venue, just publish the event, make it public, and let people sign up. And if you have 95 people which are signed up for your event, and Oracle decides, I said the name, Oracle decides to cancel your venue, then you can just go to booking.com and tell them that you bring 95 developers into their room, and then they say, yeah, please bring them.
Yeah.
They should also bring their developer friends.
Okay, let's get started. I fixed the agenda. And okay. Let me remind you that by being here, we all agree to the GraphQL Spec Membership Agreement and also the GraphQL Foundation Code of Conduct. And with that, let's introduce ourselves in the order.
We broke up there,
That
Michael,
I
but
just
I'm Shane.
freshly merged.
Yeah, I did not hear you, but probably understood you.
Very, very good. Yeah, so let's introduce us in the order of the agenda. That was what I said.
Yeah, I'm next. So Shane Myrick from Apollo. And Simon.
I'm Simon from Apollo.
I'm Martin, also from Apollo.
Camille from the guild.
And Pascal from Churchill. Oh.
Okay, Pascal, you merged my line. Okay, I will fix that later in the agenda.
Yeah, I've seen. I have the host there. I will take that out.
Okay, so we have a couple of things. Like Carmen actually went through a lot of test cases that they also have for the Apollo schema composition. We have started to create test cases from that for the composite schema spec, so that we kind of have, like, per test case or combination case, a translation to the composite schema spec, so we can see the change that there is happening, and we also can see kind of what is not covered. And lastly, we can see that the changes we did also work out. And that, let me show you. I put that in a PR. We're still working on that. So if anybody has test cases in mind or things that we didn't cover there, it can provide things to it. Let me just quickly share that. It's in the spec repository. And once we have put also like super graph definitions to that, kind of it becomes it's also a good test case that people can use then later for translations when we are at the composition step. So that thing is here, the federation / composite schema spec test cases. Let me go in the branch actually.
Just to add a bit of context, what's there, it's kind of like handpicked from what I like seen and have pretty much when I was like basically learning Federation. So some of those are like Federation V1 examples, but so yeah, they need adjustments. But yeah, it was just basically handpicked from, you know, a collection of subgraphs.
Yeah, what I think it's very good to have that somewhere in a side folder, because like it makes it very transparent in discussions that we have. Oh, nice. The balloons. Like for instance, we have here a standard subgraph in the Apollo Federation spec. And then when we look at how this looks like in the composite schema spec, you kind of see, okay, we have now these resolvers in there. It also shows like internal and things like that. So you see the changes, as well as that something is not supported. Like for instance, at the moment I marked these guys here not supported. We didn't introduce that yet. It's not that we don't that we won't introduce that, but it's kind of, we put it out of scope for the first batch of things we want to have in the spec. So go through these things. It's like I'm going through step by step and writing these things. If anybody has some other things where they think, okay, this is not covered, we should also write this as a test case in here, then we can do that. And it's nice to like have also here the transformation, like we always have the supergraph document, because there you can a bit infer, okay, that is what the composition does. There are some cases, for instance, where the composition also removes like over specification, kind of when there is a requirement, for instance, that is not needed, then it's removed from the supergraph document. So cases like this are covered.
And to be clear, I think the supergraph document here and like the Apollo format for that, that's something we're using for the test cases here, but it's not part of the spec, right? So we're just using it to validate that we get a result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to, that's why it's here, it's not in. You can see I left it out, but I put it in because when we start on really going into the details about composition, then this is a good validation where we can see, okay, if we describe the composition like that, does it meet what we have there?
Yeah, I think like, one thing that might be missing here, and it's sort of it's implicit, I think, in the supergraph document, but we don't have something sort of corresponding to that for the composite case, is the API schema, like what the public composed schema looks like.
Yeah, we can put that in. Like it's essentially just a rewrite to get the internals out, right? And the annotations gone. Like Kamil, can we?
Yeah, but I'm talking mostly about the composite case. Like, do we? Yeah. Because we have the federation case here, but for the composite case, I think the
okay.
the API schema is like the public schema is part of the spec.
Yes, and that ties really good into a discussion I had with you before. Like we have. Because there is a difference, because we have these guys here, right? And in the federation case, you might not have these because you have this entities field. And thus you don't have a need to expose these. But like this, they would just appear here. just one remark here. I called this now lookup. I found entity resolver so ugly to write.
Yeah.
But it's not that we agreed on anything here. It's just I wanted something shorter to write. But lookup is also like should be a contender maybe.
I agree. I think finder, lookup. I'm not a big fan of entity resolver, but
No, I'm also not.
but this, yeah, I can definitely get used to lookup, I think.
Yeah, the one thing I personally am having against finder as a term is kind of it reminds me of macOS Finder, like the it's like
Yeah.
a mismatched term.
It
I
was
don't know.
it was more inspired by like Ruby on Rails finders, but there's
okay.
but that's not an exact match either.
Yeah. I mean, at the end. Go ahead, Shane.
I do want to add because we mentioned real quick the API schema. I agree. We should definitely have that as like this is what we all agree should be the result, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just simply remove the directives because there is logic to some of those like we're kind of like inaccessible or hidden, right? That like those can like remove fields from the API schema entirely too. So or types even. So that's like we can't just simply there needs to be like we would need to run some implementation. I guess maybe we need to run the federation implementation to probably get the API schema, and then I don't know what we do for the composite. We just document what it should look like in this case.
Yeah.
And there's dependencies as well. Like if something is inaccessible, that could have repercussions for other things that should be inaccessible. So there are some rules that we actually need to formulate still, I think, as part of the spec.
Yes, it's definitely. So there is tons of rules we gotta write. Like I want a very explicit, like the GraphQL specification also come up with algorithms for that. At least for doesn't have to be the most efficient way, but that people understand what is happening. But I also found that helpful to discuss on concrete cases also when we validate these things. I mean, I'm trying to I'm prototyping a lot at the moment how these things work out, but you get lost in the details of these cases, and to have them in some place in the repository to validate these things, I think is a
I think that's very useful, but to Shane's point, like the API schema is also part of the expected result, so it should be part of the test case.
Yes. That's a good feedback. We're gonna add that. Then if like go through it, it's added to both representations yet. But if you find other combinations that you maybe know, okay, this is common in a customer, it's not covered here, just add them to this pull request, and then we're gonna specify them also so that we have a good feeling around this.
And it seems like just from looking at your screen, it seems some have sort of a federation and composition subdirectories and others don't at this point.
Yes, that's what I meant. Like I'm working through them as we speak, and some I haven't yet done. Right? These are
okay.
So basically, Kamil throws me test cases. So he's looking at these test cases, and he throws them. Basically, he threw them over the fence, and I'm just looking through. Okay, that is essentially the representation for the composite schema spec with the changes we made, and it works out. Or we don't have yet a solution, or whatever. But then we have like a very, we can make a much better judgment on things that change, kind of. So yes, some are just, so if there's no folder in it, it's just the Apollo
that
Federation
makes sense.
thingy. Okay, that's the one thing I'm working on at the moment. The other thing is still the variable batching. Like, so the way I gonna phrase it at the moment is without the wheel transport format, but we should come together on one. I know there is multipart on Apollo side, there is SSE on the Guild side, there is JSON-L, which we have thrown into the mix, but we kind of like, if we have 3 formats at the end, it's not good for the ecosystem.
No. I think one thing to mention is like we have implementations of that multipart protocol, not just for our web client, but also for our native clients. So it's a pretty big investment already on our part. And I think we should especially look at clients beyond just a web client when we're considering sort of the different pros and cons of these formats. Because I think in the previous discussions around SSE, for instance, we were thinking mostly about sort of the browser use case.
Yeah.
But for us, definitely other types of clients, but also the gateway or router to subgraph use case. Those are just as important. Or
yeah. So, yeah, the way I or what I'm focusing on is not the clients, right? But you're right to mention that. So in my mind, like for the gateway to subgraph communication, I think it doesn't matter, because like variable batching doesn't exist yet, and the transport doesn't really matter. I like how widely that's also something we have to have a look at, like for the ecosystem impact, how widely each of the protocols may be used.
yeah,
Maybe you're gonna have a look at that.
I think to be honest, I think for the sort of gateway to subgraph, so like GraphQL server use case, I'm wondering if any of these protocols has widespread implementation at this point. Like because they're mostly used for client to router or gateway.
Yeah, so I will have to look it up. Maybe we start with the list and do a shout out, because it would be anyway interesting to see what the ecosystem kind of uses at the moment in their product, like in Python and whatever, for transport protocols. Like how many have already, would be nice to see how many have already implemented, for instance, the draft specification for GraphQL over HTTP. Like,
I mean, I would suspect that to be pretty widespread because it's just derived from like years of usage.
Yeah, but there is the new header, you know what I mean? Like the GraphQL response plus JSON. And that is like the legacy part. Yes, I agree. That is implemented widely, but is also the GraphQL response plus JSON part implemented?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's actually.
That is like this. The GraphQL over HTTP spec says that by 2025, the legacy part is obsolete, and then the new part is coming active. That is, I think it's quickly have a look, because like it's twofold. Like we encoded the old case, and then we said, okay, but people should transition to the new case, and like that would be interesting to see, like where the ecosystem basically is.
Yeah.
Over HTTP. And then we have, like there is the application JSON part. This guy here, that this guy here, for the response payload, right? that is the legacy for legacy clients, and I think most clients will abide by that because it's very lenient. But this one is a new one, and also deals with status codes and things like that. So and there is like the watershed is for the 1st January of 2025. That is next year. The JSON part becomes obsolete. I think Apollo does it already.
Okay. Would be interesting to know more about sort of how widespread this is.
Yeah, that's also why Benji said a good thing here is then if we just introduce here response plus JSON-L, it kind of ties in very well into the spec chain, into the new transport format.
Yeah. I think one other data point for multi-part is the current like incremental delivery transport or defer.
Yeah,
I think that was one of the other reasons we went with multi-part. And it would be really nice to integrate incremental delivery with batching, for instance. I know that's one of the things we talked about.
yes. Yeah, we need to make a decision on that. But it's like I think like the way I approach that at the moment from the spec standpoint is that I kind of leave the format out, because like I hope we agree on the general mechanism of variable batching.
I think so, yeah.
Because like from the composite schema spec, we can describe everything if we agree on that.
Yeah.
And then we can discuss and look at what the format is. For me at the moment, I implemented all three. So just to experiment.
I was going to recommend, we can definitely do and discuss what could be a good protocol, but I don't think it's actually defining what protocol must be used for it to be like composite schema compatible, like spec compatible. Like we could defer that decision to, well, we recommend using one of the 3 widely adopted, or we recommend one but recommended, right? Not like required. And so that way we don't release a spec and then everyone immediately has to go change their protocol. But at least we can say, well, we all agree that the format or the mechanism will be variable batching for the input, and that's those GraphQL parts of it. But like we'll defer the protocol decision until a later date and maybe move it to the GraphQL working group or the separate working group of the HTTP group, right?
Exactly. That's how I want to kind of get rid of. We get entangled in that decision, because then we kind of it would slow down the whole spec process. We could just say we expect variable batching to be implemented by a subgraph, and then do whatever. Like
do we even have to expect variable batching to be implemented?
Yes, because otherwise we have an n+1 problem.
Yeah, but is the spec concerned about the n+1 problem? I mean, if you think about it, GraphQL spec isn't concerned about the n+1 problem of resolvers as well, right? Can we just have it as an appendix that it would be nice for people to have?
I think it's more than nice to have, but I agree it's not necessarily.
I mean, it's just so we can move
on.
We can move on with the spec and iterate over this in the work group, which actually has to make the decision on it, right?
I think we can specify variable batching at an abstract level, right? As a mechanism, we expect to, like, at runtime in a transport specific way.
Yes, and like I think you have to have it. Like otherwise, it's just not feasible.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you also have to have data loaders if you have resolvers nested. So
yeah, but we describe here also like I mean, not at the moment, but I really intend to describe also a basic level of query planning, so that people have like a good starting point to implement that. Not that we go in all detail there, but if you don't have batching for that, it's mute.
Yeah. But if you think about it, at the stage where we currently are, the test cases you have there in the composition schema, and all the other things, I think when we just leave that be and go over composition and all these kind of things, then maybe we can move faster.
I think we at a minimum we definitely need to. I don't think we could genuinely release a composite schema spec that doesn't tell people what they should be doing for batching, because this is like the key use case of federation, where it's like I go get a list of products and I want the reviews for all the products. Okay, so now I have to make 10 or n calls to the review service, right? Like that's the primary use case of like merging these schemas together. So like I think it would be pretty disingenuous to at least not like say this is how you can solve that problem. Maybe Pascal, you bring up a point, which is like, do we need to force it on day one that everyone must implement that and move everyone to that? Maybe that we can defer that decision again, but like I think we definitely need to have something in the spec again, like at least a recommended. I'm still leaning towards we put it as a like yeah, this is part of the spec, you need to implement it, but we need to have it in the spec at least to saying like this is how everyone should solve the problem if we're all going to agree to solve it, so that way we don't have different implementations of how to handle multiple requests, right? So that we have everyone doing it the same way, and then implementers can slowly
assume
do the same thing.
We just assume from here on that variable batching exists, and then if we are all confident with it, and then we, in case that we find some major flaw, a major issue, and we realize we cannot do it, then we already have composition and everything done. But it's more like if we just expect it to be there and then defer this work to the transport working group, then we can move along in different ways.
But I think we're already experimenting with this, right?
Exactly. I wouldn't stop that. So what I don't want to have is that we go out there and then we have a variance of this. Like everybody does it a bit different. So we don't have to hammer out the details. Like if it's encoded in multi-part or SSE, that is like, for me, I could see that as an implementation detail, and then you could decide how you do that. But the structure of the request must be clear, and that you get kind of a result that collects this. The general rules around that must be clear, and we have to call that out in the source graph or source schema chapter that we have, and there we have to say, so this is part of the specification for any GraphQL service that wants to be part of a composite schema. So that's kind of what Apollo calls the subgraph specification, and this is the same. This is part of it, basically.
Yeah.
Everybody good? Okay, so yeah, so like the experimentations we did, like I have a lot of open pull requests open at the moment, is that like it works out. Like at the moment, it's really a bleeding edge prototype we have of the gateway, but the directives we have with variable batching, they work out and they perform well. So that's what I took now from 2 weeks of implementing it and testing with it, and so from my side, I'm confident that that the design holds, and I would now move really on refining the directives. Really going through there are a couple of errors in the directives we have. Like that's why I looked at the test cases at the moment, so we get confidence. Like for instance, Shane called out that internal, for instance, is only allowed on field definitions at the moment in the spec document. That's just because we copied these directives from Federation and Fusion together, and I think we should now refine them and then move on to the composition once we agreed on the form and shape of the directive set that we have. So I would really start now on writing down the chapter, if everybody agrees that we can move on. Okay. I take silence as acceptance. Because like there is a couple of things also missing, like from the directives at the moment. That's because like we didn't work on this chapter at all. When we look at this guy here, it's just at the moment it's just copy paste. So I would yeah, we should make a vote in the Slack group maybe, or I put a vote up as an issue, and then we should just vote on the term for this thing and move on. We can always change it before we go to the next stage in the Slack, but that we have a shorter term. But here's also one directive that is missing at the moment is key. I already used it in the tests, and it's just an oversight. But we need to get that in, and then also we have to fix a couple of things here. Like this one will be, I think, the biggest investment, like from a spec standpoint, because of inputs, because exactly of this case. And I have a couple of cases here in mind. Like they are not yet in the test cases that Camille provided. I need a bit more complex key cases for that, where the keys are much larger, or also the requirements are much larger. So we can see like how this maps, especially when you put fragments in there. That is one thing we have to put some fantasy in. Imagination, image. Because that is not yet solved. Like there could be some cases. I think there could be a lot of innovation around these things, but yeah, let's discuss that in the test cases. Just if you guys have some complex test cases, also just put them in.
Yeah.
And then we try to see how that works out. Like these simple cases, they are super easy. Like if you have like single ID, single something, then it always works out. One thing I'm also not sure at the moment is if that should be fields or field. At the moment, it's kind of, okay, we map here one thing on this argument, but could it also be if we have like 4 properties here, 4 fields in this input, that you select here 4 fields? We have to decide on that as well.
Yeah,
like this,
yeah. And there are even some alternative syntaxes to consider.
Yeah.
Like if you select a single field, for instance, you might want to use a shorthand, like just a dot syntax instead of all the braces.
Yes.
But in case you want to provide mapping, for instance, aliasing, for the more complex cases.
The funny thing was dot syntax. That was our original syntax.
Okay. Yeah.
The big problem with the dot syntax is from a specification point of view, you have to specify a new language. If you just say that this is a graphical selection set, then you're all done. It's already specified.
But it's a graphical selection set with some limitations because you want the result to be a single field in this case.
Yes. That's why I said that's why this is a field selection syntax, not like I took a lot of inspiration here a bit from the liberties that Apollo took, like with field set. That was a very, very good idea, because you can reuse all the parsing tools, right? But yeah, we can discuss that, how we go That's how we see that. Do we see that as kind of a union of syntax or not? Let's do a discussion on that. See and explore a bit the ideas. But yeah, but again, like probably we put up a discussion for each of these directives.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we also have to decide what use cases we actually want to support with this, because especially for the input objects, I can see sort of fairly complicated scenarios where you want to basically require different fields for the different fields of your input type, like basically create an input object on the fly from different requires. I'm not sure that's something we'll be able to support or want to support, but it's definitely like we could definitely put that into the mix when we discuss the syntax or the directive.
So from a general, should I create a clean directive text first for each of them, and then put each of the text in an issue, and then we start discussing on that, like from a participation kind of view angle, or should I put it just in the document and you do pull requests?
I think it's probably easier to keep things together, because if we split them up and then we have to recompose it, it might become complicated. Like we can always have discussions on a PR, right?
That's can we maybe remove it and then add it via PR, the whole thing, because then we can make comments by lines, because otherwise we cannot.
Yeah,
sure, that's why I have temp here to move things out there, and then we can put them.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, I will do that. I'll start a couple of PRs on that, and then we can discuss them as single things. There's also one pull request I wanted to discuss. Like I was a bit on the fence. This guy here, and Simon is also here, so it's good. I'm just on the fence on what we mean here. Has everybody looked at this one? Because I was in merging mode today. I merged a lot of the edits that we have. But this one changed from a must to a should. And it's a bit so I also forward you this one as a link into Slack. So it's a bit about if the source may provide by a different combination of service. Yeah. So over time, the same functionality may be provided by a different combination of services, while the composite schemas interface must continue to support existing requests from all clients.
Yeah, this is the most.
I agree that's not strictly a must, because like schema evolution is still under user control. Like it's you're not forced to keep your schema backwards compatible, basically.
Yes. Okay. So I talked about back and forth with Benji. The thing why I was like more a must is because I thought around. So if you change the general subgraph structure, but the functionality stays the same, so the observable schema stays the same, so the request should act the same, like from an observable standpoint.
Yeah.
But maybe we can work. So Benji says this is anyway not kind of spec. This is more an introduction, and we can work around with a will. So it's not a spec, like not a spec thing anymore. Like it's not a must or should, and like it's from the user standpoint written thing.
So within the spec, must has a very specific meaning.
Yes, that's why.
If you don't do this, you are not conformant to the spec. But
exactly.
What this paragraph is trying to say is that this spec gives you tools to achieve this, if you want to.
Yes, exactly. I saw it different. That's why I was a bit opposed to this. But yeah, it's more we give you the tools to not break the thing, but
Yeah.
you can choose to change the type and then you break the thing because this is a deliberate decision by you.
Yeah. The intention, because I think this is largely something I wrote originally. Like the intention was to avoid, for instance, namespacing mechanisms that are per subgraph. Like to make it absolutely sure that as a design principle, this is something that we wouldn't be accepting into the spec, because namespacing per subgraph breaks this evolvability principle.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to merge that later. I just wanted to get clear on what we mean. Okay, so this one is through. I add the test cases, and then we start on the directives. That's it from me. Anything else? Anybody has something?
I've two small things just out of the meeting today. The lookup finder entity resolver discussions that we have, and that we want to land on this. Should we make a when's the next big working group? Is it in 1 or is it in 2 weeks? Is it first week of the month or second
First
week?
First week. So it's
first
next week
of the month, next week. So maybe we can make a bit of progress there, and then just try to fix the name.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
also have
that's-
we'll have an open issue for it, so maybe we could also continue the discussion there.
Awesome.
Yeah, just so that it's not that
yeah,
we
makes sense.
yeah, just so that we kind of know that we make our final thoughts on it, and then we can have the last discussion next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's put a poll in here. Like where can we do that in the issues? Like a poll?
You can
I
have
don't have it.
emojis that you can add, but you have to have
yeah, awesome. Yeah, let's do that.
selection.
Let's keep it simple. Let's vote with emojis or something like that, and then we just take the one that gets the most votes here.
Or I think we should probably like bring this to the next working group when there's a larger group of people.
Yeah, but it gives us
Yeah.
a good idea.
Okay.
We cannot discuss 50 different approaches. So when we can just vote, then we also have like the top 5, and then we can bring discussion based on the top 5, right?
Yeah.
Because at the
Yeah.
moment it looks like we have like 15, which is definitely too much.
Yeah.
So in general, I favor short.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Same.
criterion. I think for me it's between finder and lookup with the current names that we've come up with, but yeah, maybe there are
you
still
have suggested lookup.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, I came up with it in a meeting today, but actually I might be influenced by
Well, I mean,
you
it's
already.
it's a good sign if you come up with it independently. It means it's probably
Yeah, no, I might even just have had it just back in my mind because I read this issue. But sometimes it's
but maybe
like,
we can already put that out as a agenda item for the big work group, so that people that attend only the big work groups know that this will be a topic, and then we can do the same thing for variable batching, so that we also get this out of the way, so that we say that we can decide on like last considerations, and then just say let's go this route. We need a batching mechanism, and it is most likely this, and then we can decide if we want to do this or not, because then we have this out of the way and we can move, right? That would be quite nice.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
when we have it out of the way, we can also, when we say that this is most likely going to be, or this is very likely going to be the stuff that we need, then we can also move with this into the other working group, and then we can do this in parallel. And the second thing is the test cases that we have there
Yes.
in the first pull request. It would be really nice if we could get from your side as well some things. So if you can have a look at these and what's there, maybe you also find out some patterns that you think about, which might be difficult to translate, or just special cases which are not covered yet. Because then we have a collection of all the things that we can come up. So if you can just have a look from your side, maybe just discuss it through and come up with some of the cases that you have, because you probably have the same thing and we all have, right? Somewhere a set of things that has to work out.
Yeah, I mean, Camel uses a lot of Apollo tools to get it out of debug mode. He told me how he gets these things compared. So yeah,
Yep.
awesome.
Just
So then-
real quick too, I
Yeah.
as we were sitting here talking, I created a separate issue for the protocol and we'll just link to it from the mechanism, just so we can also maybe have it written down somewhere if we want to decide like, oh, let's discuss here. And then I just linked to Benji's gist that he shared. So just very, very bare bones right now, but just I wanted to start that because they're two separate discussions, right? And we didn't have a
Yes.
public issue for that. So
And that's also good. Like I want to take this apart. Like this is one discussion, but this doesn't block the general mechanism, and then we can move in parallel on these things, and also like get more feedback or whatever on these issues without blocking the rest of the progress. So yeah, that's good. Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, I merged a couple of these today. There were a couple also by Yakov that we that I merged. I think this one is not necessary. If you work through these, like just as the last thing, this one I think is not necessary. It basically calls out that you can have tooling that transforms existing or external schemas into compliant source schemas, like a pre-processing.
Yeah, that seems out of scope for the spec.
Yeah, it's also not necessary. I think you can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to do that and it produces a valid subgraph schema, then whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the GraphQL spec also doesn't say that you can like generate it from a database schema.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's you can do that if you want to do that, but we don't have to call it out. I think it's
Yeah.
not necessary. Okay, apart from that, I have all merged, all suggestions that were in. I will merge Simon's, and then we, I think, have caught up on the main thing.
Thank you so much for all the
Awesome.
work you've done. Yeah.
Then we see us next week.
Sounds good.
all right, see you.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
bye.